The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than most cities. Crystal walls stretched up so high they disappeared in the clouds. Thousands of seats floated in perfect circles around a central platform where speakers stood to address the galaxy's most powerful beings. Today felt like any other day to Ambassador Vexthara as she prepared her weekly intelligence report. Her purple skin gleamed under the artificial suns that lit the massive chamber. As a member of the Catherian Empire, she had access to the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. Her people had been traveling between stars for over 50,000 years. "Honored council members," she began, her voice echoing through translators that converted her words into thousands of different languages. "This week, we discovered 3 new civilizations in the outer spiral arms." The council barely paid attention. Most representatives were busy with their own affairs. The Etherian delegate flickered like blue flame as she processed trade reports. Admiral Zoreth of the Hegemony Defense Fleet used 2 of his 4 arms to review patrol schedules, while his other 2 arms signed documents. "The first species has already achieved quantum tunneling for faster-than-light travel," Vexthara continued. "The second has mastered matter conversion. Both show promise for eventual council membership." A few heads turned with mild interest. New members meant new resources and knowledge to share. "The third species," Vexthara paused and checked her notes again. "The third species calls itself humanity and lives on a planet called Earth." Complete silence filled the hall for exactly 3 seconds. Then, the laughter began. It started as quiet chuckling from the back rows. The insectoid sky clicked their mandibles in what passed for giggles among their kind. The plant-based Verdani rustled their leaves in amusement. Soon the entire council was roaring with laughter. Admiral Zoreth wiped tears from his 3 eyes with one massive hand. "Did you say humanity still uses chemical rockets?" "According to our scans, yes," Vexthara replied, fighting to keep her professional tone while the council continued laughing. "They have recently developed basic fusion drives, but their fastest ships take months to travel between planets in their own solar system. Months," wheezed Chancellor Mordun, his gas-filled body wobbling with mirth. "Our shuttlecraft move faster than their best warships." The Etherian representative's energy form pulsed brighter. "What do they use for weapons?" "Surely not those primitive kinetic projectiles we see in their entertainment broadcasts." "Actually," Vexthara said, consulting her datapad, "their main weapons are exactly that. Metal projectiles fired by chemical explosives. Their most advanced military units still use nuclear fusion bombs." The laughter grew even louder. Several council members had to excuse themselves to avoid choking on their various breathing gases. "Nuclear fusion?" Admiral Zoreth's voice boomed across the chamber. "We stopped using fusion weapons when we discovered antimatter. That was 30,000 years ago." Dr. Silara from the Science Council floated forward in her mobility chair. Her ancient race had evolved beyond physical bodies millennia ago, existing as pure thought in mechanical shells. "How do they power their civilization?" "Please tell me it's not fossil fuels." "Mostly fossil fuels, yes," Vexthara confirmed, though they are beginning to experiment with solar collection and basic fusion reactors. The chamber erupted in fresh waves of laughter. Even the normally serious Phantom Lords, beings of living shadow from the dark matter realms, rippled with what might have been amusement. "This is better than our comedy programs," gasped Representative Flux from the Silicon Collective. "What's their population?" "Approximately 8 billion individuals on their home planet alone." 8 billion! Admiral Zoreth slammed his 4 hands on his desk. "They breed like bacteria. No wonder they're so primitive. With that many mouths to feed, they probably spend all their time just trying to survive." Chancellor Mordun raised his crystalline staff for attention. The laughter slowly died down. "Ambassador Vexthara, surely even a primitive species must have some redeeming qualities." What about their art, their philosophy, their scientific achievements? Vexthera scrolled through her files. Their art seems to focus heavily on violence and conflict. Their philosophy is fragmented into thousands of competing belief systems. As for science, they only recently proved the existence of quantum mechanics. They still debate whether their climate is changing due to their own pollution. Another wave of chuckling swept the room. What about their government? Asked Senator Kritos from the Democratic Federation. Surely they have some form of unified planetary authority? No. They are divided into nearly 200 separate nations that frequently argue with each other. Some still engage in physical warfare, using those primitive weapons I mentioned earlier. The council members shook their heads in amazement. Even the most backward civilizations usually manage to unite their home planet before attempting space travel. Have they made any attempts at contact? Dr. Silara inquired. They broadcast radio signals into space, but most seem to be entertainment programs about their primitive culture. They have sent a few basic probes to neighboring planets, but nothing that could reach other star systems. Admiral Zorth stood up to his full 12-foot height. In my professional military opinion, this species poses no threat to anyone except themselves. I recommend we classify them as Category 7, Primitive Curiosity. Standard observation. Protocols, but no direct contact until they advance several thousand years. Seconded. Called out dozens of voices across the chamber. All in favor? Chancellor Mordun asked. Every hand, tentacle, energy projection, and mechanical appendage in the room rose in agreement. Unanimous, the Chancellor declared. Humanity is hereby classified as a Category 7 civilization. Ambassador Vexthara, please continue monitoring their progress and report back in 50 years. Perhaps by then they will have learned to build proper starships. As the Council moved on to more important matters, like trade disputes between advanced civilizations, no one noticed the small notation that appeared in the classified files. Human probe detected unusual energy signatures at galactic edge. Investigation recommended. The file was automatically tagged as low priority and forgotten. After all, what could such a primitive species possibly know about threats that the great powers of the galaxy couldn't handle? The meeting continued as representatives discussed real problems, territorial boundaries between star empires, regulations for time travel technology, and new discoveries in dimensional engineering. Humanity was already forgotten, filed away with thousands of other primitive worlds that might someday become interesting. In the vast bureaucracy of galactic civilization, Earth had become just another number in just another report from just another primitive sector of space. The Council had no idea how wrong they were. 3 months later, something unexpected happened at Zephyria Prime. A human ship appeared at the edge of the system. The vessel looked exactly like what the Council expected from such a primitive species. The UES Endeavor was bulky and crude, with thick metal plating and visible fusion drives that glowed bright blue. Next to the elegant crystal ships of the Cytherians, or the living vessels grown by the Verdani, it looked like a flying brick. Station Control received a transmission on ancient radio frequencies. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Endeavor. We request permission to dock and address the Galactic Council on a matter of urgent importance. The traffic controller, a young Cytherian named Zex High, almost choked on his nutrition fluid. Did they say they want to address the Council? Patch? It threw to Council security. His supervisor laughed. They'll get a kick out of this. Captain Chun was a 45-year-old woman who'd spent most of her life in Earth's space program. She had brown hair starting to show gray and calm brown eyes that had seen the wonders of Earth's solar system. This was her first time leaving human space, and everything around her was amazing and terrifying at the same time. The Endeavor's crew of 50 had trained for 2 years for this mission. They carried Earth's first formal request for recognition as a galactic civilization. More importantly, they carried a warning that Earth scientists hoped someone would take seriously. Council security made them wait. And wait. And wait. For 3 days, the human ship sat in the visitors section of the orbital station. Captain Chen and her diplomatic team were given quarters in what was clearly designed for lesser species. The rooms were small, poorly ventilated, and had gravity settings that made everyone feel sick. "They're treating us like animals in a zoo," complained Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's lead scientist on the mission. "Stay professional," Captain Chen reminded her team. "We're here to make a good impression." Finally, after 5 days, they received permission to address the council. Captain Chen put on her best dress uniform and prepared the presentation that Earth had spent months creating. The council chamber was even more impressive in person. Captain Chen had never seen so many different forms of life in one place. Some representatives looked almost human. Others were clearly machines. A few seemed to be made of pure energy or living crystals. The council recognizes the delegation from Earth, Chancellor Mordoon announced, checking his notes as if he couldn't quite believe what he was reading. Captain Chen walked to the center platform. Her heart was racing, but she kept her voice steady. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I am Captain Sarah Chen, representing the government of Earth and the species you know as humanity." Quiet murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most representatives seemed amused that the primitive humans had actually managed to travel this far. Earth formally requests recognition as a sovereign civilization and seeks membership in this council. Captain Chen continued, "We understand we have much to learn, but we believe we can contribute to galactic peace and prosperity." Admiral Zorith leaned forward in his seat. "Captain Chen, what exactly do you think humanity could contribute to civilizations that are thousands of years ahead of your technology?" "Different perspectives, Admiral. Sometimes an outside viewpoint can solve problems that seem impossible to those too close to them." Several council members chuckled softly. But more immediately, Captain Chen said, her voice growing urgent, "We come with a warning. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures approaching from outside the galaxy. Something very large and very powerful is heading toward Council space." The chuckling stopped. Chancellor Morden frowned. "What exactly did your monitoring stations detect?" Dr. Webb stepped forward and activated a holographic display. 3 weeks ago, our radio telescopes picked up gravitational waves unlike anything in our databases. The waves suggest objects the size of small moons moving at nearly light speed. Gravitational waves? Dr. Silara's mechanical voice carried clear skepticism. "Your species only recently discovered those exist. You certainly don't have the technology to interpret such complex data." "With respect, Doctor, we may be new to space travel, but humans have always been good at detecting danger. Our survival is dependent on it for millions of years." Ambassador Vexthara stood up. "Captain Chen, our most advanced sensors monitor the entire galaxy constantly. If there were truly a threat approaching, we would have detected it long before a primitive civilization like yours. Unless they were specifically designed not to be detected by your technology," Captain Chen replied. The chamber fell silent. Then Admiral Zorith began laughing. Within seconds, most of the council was laughing along with him. "Captain," Admiral Zorith said between chuckles, "you're suggesting that some unknown enemy has technology advanced enough to fool Kitherian sensors, but primitive enough for humans to detect? That's like saying a child with a telescope can see things that our orbital observatories cannot. Sometimes children notice things adults miss because they're looking in different places." Captain Chen said quietly. Chancellor Mordoon raised his staff for silence. "Captain Chen, we appreciate your concern for galactic security. However, The Council has defended this galaxy for over 1,000,000 years. Our sensor networks monitor every possible threat. If there were truly danger approaching, our early warning systems would have detected it. Dr. Webb tried again. We've prepared detailed readings and coordinates. The threat appears to be coming from the direction of the Magellanic Clouds. If you could just verify our data. Young human, Dr. Silara interrupted. Perhaps when your species learns to properly calibrate sensor equipment, you will realize that space is full of natural phenomena that can be mistaken for artificial threats. Solar flares, neutron star emissions, quantum fluctuations, all can create signals that primitive sensors might interpret as enemy activity. Captain Chun felt her patience wearing thin, but she maintained her diplomatic smile. Doctors, admirals, honored council members, I understand your skepticism. Our technology may seem primitive to you, but Earth scientists stake their reputations on this data. We are asking you to investigate. If we're wrong, no harm is done. If we're right. If you're right, Admiral Zoreth said with obvious amusement, then the mighty galactic defense fleet will protect everyone, just as we have for millennia. But thank you for your concern. Chancellor Morda nodded formally. The Council has heard humanity's request for membership and your warning about this supposed threat. Regarding membership, we will consider your application when your species has advanced sufficiently to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. As for your warning, we thank you for your vigilance, but our own security systems are quite capable. Captain Chun took a deep breath. Chancellor, if you won't investigate our coordinates, then I must inform you that Earth will prepare its own defenses. We hope we're wrong about this threat, but if we're not, humanity will defend itself. The laughter that followed was the loudest yet. The idea that humans could defend themselves against anything that threatened the Council was apparently the funniest thing these advanced beings had heard in years. Of course, Captain, Chancellor Mordun said with barely controlled mirth. Please, defend away. The Council wishes humanity the best of luck with its preparations. As Captain Chun and her team were escorted out of the chamber, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had just witnessed the calm before a terrible storm. The Council returned to more important business, already forgetting the amusing little warning from the primitive humans. None of them noticed the automatic security alert that had been triggered by human sensor data. The alert was classified as low priority and sent to a junior analyst who wouldn't review it for another week. By then, it would be far too late. 2 weeks after the human warning, space itself began to scream. The first attacks came exactly where the humans had predicted, near the Magellanic Clouds. Automated sensor stations simply stopped transmitting. At first, the Galactic Council thought it was just equipment failure. Deep space was hard on electronics, even advanced Catherian technology. Then the colony of New Thresh sent its final message. Unknown vessels approaching. Massive energy readings. They're bigger than our cities. We're trying to establish communication. They're not responding. Oh God, they're not stopping. They're not. The transmission cut to static. Admiral Zoreth stood in the central command center of the Galactic Defense Fleet, staring at displays showing absolutely nothing where New Thresh used to be. Not destroyed buildings. Not debris. Nothing at all. Nothing. Send a reconnaissance squadron to investigate, he ordered. 6 ships jumped to the New Thresh system. The fastest vessels in the galaxy. Each one could destroy a planet if needed. They had shields that could deflect starfire and weapons that bent. Reality itself. They found empty space where a thriving world of 12 million people used to orbit its sun. Sir, came the voice of Commander Yulhai over the communication system. There's no planet here. No asteroid field. No debris. It's like New Thresh never existed. That's impossible, Admiral Zoreth replied. Planets don't just disappear. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from galactic north. Whatever destroyed New Thresh is heading for the core worlds. Admiral Zorth felt something he hadn't experienced in his 3 centuries of military service. Fear. The things that came out of deep space were not ships as the Council understood them. They were living mountains of metal and flesh, each one the size of Earth's moon. Their surfaces crawled with organic technology that pulsed like heartbeats. Sensor scans showed they were part machine, part creature, part something else entirely that Council science couldn't identify. Deploy all available fleets, Admiral Zorth commanded. Full battle formation. Authorization Omega 77. The greatest military force in galactic history assembled in less than 6 hours. 10,000 warships took position between the invaders and the core worlds. Ketherian reality benders floated alongside hegemony dreadnoughts. Etherian energy beings merged with mechanical vessels to create hybrid weapons of impossible power. The first battle lasted 17 minutes. The aliens, the Council started calling them. Devourers moved like living things despite their massive size. When Council ships fired matter disruptors that could delete atoms from existence, the Devourers simply absorbed the energy and grew larger. When quantum torpedoes hit their hulls, the organic metal rippled and healed itself in seconds. Worse, the Devourers learned. Each new weapon the Council used worked for a few minutes. Then the alien ships adapted and became immune. "They're eating our attacks," reported Captain Silvex from the front lines. "Every time we hit them, they get stronger." The Devourers fought back with weapons that Council science couldn't explain. Some ships simply stopped existing when hit by Devourer beams. Others turned inside out. A few seemed to age thousands of years in seconds, crumbling to dust as their crews died of old age. "All ships retreat," Admiral Zorth finally ordered. "Fall back to defensive positions." But retreat wasn't fast enough. The Devourers moved through space like sharks through water, hunting down fleeing Council vessels. By the time the survivors reached the next line of defense, half the fleet was gone. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council became desperate planning meetings. Representatives who had spent millennia debating trade agreements now faced the extinction of their civilizations. "How many worlds have we lost?" Chancellor Mordon asked, his crystalline body dimmed with exhaustion. 47 confirmed, Dr. Sillar reported. 80 more have gone silent. The Devourers aren't just destroying planets. They're consuming them, converting the matter into more ships. "What about our allies?" asked Ambassador Vexthara. "The Phantom Lords? The Silicon Collective?" The Phantom Lords tried to hide in dark matter. The Devourers found them anyway. The Silicon Collective uploaded their consciousness to quantum computers and scattered them across the galaxy. The Devourers hacked the quantum encryption and deleted them. The chamber fell silent. These were civilizations older than human history, with technology that seemed like magic. If the Devourers could defeat them so easily, military status? Chancellor Morden asked quietly. Admiral Zorth's voice was hollow. "We've lost 60% of our fleet. The Devourers are adapting faster than we can develop new weapons. Our best estimates give us 2 weeks before they reach the core worlds. Recommendations?" For the first time in his long career, Admiral Zorth had no answer. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving distress calls from the outer colonies. Some of them are asking about that human warning. They want to know if we investigated their coordinates." The uncomfortable silence that followed lasted for nearly a minute. Dr. Sillar finally spoke. "Perhaps we should review the human data. Their coordinates did accurately predict where the attacks began. You want to ask a primitive species for help?" Admiral Zorth's pride was clearly wounded. "I want to explore every option," Dr. Silara replied. The humans detected something our sensors missed. Maybe they know something else we don't. Ambassador Vexthara checked her files. The human ship is still in our space. They requested permission to establish a temporary monitoring station at the edge of our system. We granted it as a courtesy. Contact them, Chancellor Mordun decided. Ask if they have any additional information about these devourers. The communication took 12 hours to reach Captain Chen. Her response came back in 6 hours. Council members, we appreciate your inquiry. Our scientists have been studying the invasion pattern. We believe the devourers are testing your defenses, learning your capabilities. The real attack hasn't started yet. What do they mean? The real attack. Admiral Zorth demanded. Another message arrived 3 hours later. Our deep space monitors show massive energy buildups at 17 different points around the galaxy. We estimate the main invasion fleet is 50 times larger than what you've faced so far. They'll attack simultaneously from all directions in approximately 72 hours. The council chamber erupted in panic. If the current Devour force was just a scouting party, the main attack would overwhelm their remaining defenses completely. Do the humans have any suggestions for defense? Dr. Silara asked desperately. The final human message was short and puzzling. We recommend you evacuate all essential personnel to the inner systems. Earth is implementing its own defense protocols. We may not be able to maintain communications once operations begin. Good luck. Defense protocols? Admiral Zorth laughed bitterly. What defense could they possibly have against this? As reports continued to pour in about Devour movements, no one in the council noticed a small notation in the human message logs. U.S. Endeavor has departed system. Course unknown. No response to hail attempts. The humans had vanished just as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving the council to face the greatest threat in galactic history with what remained of their shattered fleets. Admiral Zorth stood before the tactical displays, watching red enemy markers multiply across the galactic map. In 72 hours, civilization itself might end. He wondered if the humans had simply run away to hide, or if they actually believed their primitive technology could accomplish something that advanced galactic science could not. Either way, the council was about to find out if their earlier laughter had been justified or the worst mistake in galactic history. The Kepler 442 system had been dead for 1,000 years. 3 burned planets orbited a dying star, their surfaces turned to glass by some ancient war. No life existed here. No resources worth taking. Even the council's detailed star charts marked it as uninhabitable. Wasteland. It should have been an easy target for the Devourer. Fleet. Admiral Moggoth commanded. The largest group of Devourers ever assembled. Over 3,000 biomechanical ships, each one grown from the matter of consumed worlds. His vessels had adapted to every weapon the council possessed. Nothing could stop them now. The dead system lay ahead, ripe for harvesting. Even barren worlds contained useful minerals. The Devourers would strip the planets down to their cores, converting everything into more ships for the final assault on the Council's home worlds. Begin consumption protocol? Admiral Mondoth ordered through the organic communication network that connected every Devourer ship. The fleet moved into attack formation. Weapons charging, harvesting beams preparing to tear apart planets. Sensors showed nothing but empty space and dead rocks. Then reality broke. It started as a ripple in space itself, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The stars seemed to bend and twist. Space folded in ways that hurt to look at. Something massive faded into existence where nothing had been before. Not emerging from hyperspace like normal ships. Not decloaking like hidden vessels. Actually becoming real, as if the universe was deciding whether it existed or not. The ship that materialized was unlike anything in the Council's databases or the Devourers. Absorbed memories. It was huge, nearly as large as the biggest Devourer vessels, but its shape was all wrong. Sharp angles cut through space like knife edges. Its hull seemed to be made of crystallized darkness that bent light around it. Admiral Morgoth felt something new. Confusion. His sensors couldn't decide if the ship was there or not. Energy readings fluctuated wildly. Sometimes the vessel appeared solid. Other times, it seemed like empty space wearing a ship's disguise. Identify target. He commanded his bioorganic computers. Target identity unknown. Hull composition unknown. Energy signature unknown. Threat level unknown. The dog ship hung in space, making no aggressive moves. It simply existed, radiating an aura of quiet menace that made even the Devourers hesitate. Then it spoke. The voice came across all frequencies at once, somehow translating itself into languages that Devourers had absorbed from consumed civilizations. The words were simple, almost casual. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the UES Phantom's Edge. You are in violation of interstellar law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Admiral Morgoth had consumed the minds of 1 billion beings. He understood every known language, every form of communication. But the casual confidence in that human voice made no sense. How could such a primitive species threaten the mighty Devourers? Human vessel, he replied, his biomechanical voice rumbling across space. Surrender now and your death will be swift. Negative. Last warning. Withdraw or be destroyed. The Devourer fleet opened fire with everything they had. Planet-killing energy beams, reality-warping missiles, weapons that deleted matter from existence. 3,000 ships unleashing destruction that could crack moons. Every shot passed through empty space. The human ship flickered in and out of existence, never quite there when the weapons arrived. Interesting, came the calm human voice. Our turn. What happened next redefined warfare for every species watching. The human ships seemed to split apart, revealing weapon systems that shouldn't exist. Arrays of crystalline structures that hummed with impossible energy. Devices that looked like they had been built from captured starlight. The first weapon fired looked like a purple beam that moved too slowly to be dangerous. It drifted toward a Devourer ship like lazy lightning. When it hit, the massive biomechanical vessel simply aged. In seconds, its hull corroded and cracked. Its organic components withered and died. The ship crumbled to dust as if it had been floating in space for 1 million years. Entropy cannon, Captain Rodriguez announced calmly. Accelerates time locally. Your ship just experienced the heat death of the universe in fast forward. The second weapon created small tears in space that expanded into spheres of absolute nothing. Devourer ships that touched these spheres didn't explode or break apart. They simply stopped existing, as if they had never been built. Probability mines, the human explained. They rewrite causality. Your ships have a 0% chance of existing when they encounter one. Admiral Morgoth ordered his fleet to scatter and adapt, but the human weapons kept changing. Some fired beams of pure physics that made Devourer hulls forget how to be solid. Others launched projectiles that arrived before they were fired, hitting targets in the past. The biomechanical Devourers, masters of adaptation, found they couldn't adapt to weapons that changed the basic rules of reality. How? Admiral Morgoth transmitted desperately. Your species is primitive. Your technology is crude. Captain Rodriguez's voice carried a hint of amusement. You made the same mistake as the Council. You looked at our civilian ships and assumed that's all we had. Humans have always been good at hiding our true capabilities until we need them. More human ships began to appear throughout the system. Not the bulky fusion-powered vessels the galaxy knew about, but sleek predators that phased in and out of reality. Each one carried weapons that treated the laws of physics as friendly suggestions rather than absolute rules. The UES Shadow Strike fired bolts of concentrated gravity that turned Devourer ships into microscopic black holes. The used Voidwalker launched torpedoes that exploded backwards through time, destroying targets before impact. The UES Reality's Edge simply pointed at enemy vessels and made them decide they didn't want to exist anymore. You see, Captain Rodriguez continued as her fleet systematically dismantled the most dangerous force in galactic history. While other species focused on bigger weapons and stronger shields, humans took a different approach. We learned to make reality itself our ally. Admiral Morgoth watched his unstoppable fleet being destroyed by impossible weapons wielded by the species everyone had dismissed as harmless primitives. Desperation drove him to attempt a final ramming attack with his flagship, the massive biomechanical command. Ship accelerated toward the Phantom's edge at near-light speed, its hull blazing with adaptive armor that had survived every Council weapon. The human ship didn't move. It simply became more real, solidifying into normal space-time with weight that bent gravity around it. Admiral Morgoth's flagship hit something that was somehow more solid than matter itself. The Devourer vessel crumpled like paper against an invisible wall, its biomechanical systems failing as they encountered hull plates that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Reality anchor deployed, Captain Rodriguez announced. Your ship is now locked in normal physics. No adaptation possible. The final Devourer vessel died as conventional weapons tore through armor that could no longer change to resist them. In 27 minutes. The human fleet had eliminated a force that had consumed 47 worlds and destroyed the greatest military in galactic history. The silence that followed was broken only by Captain Rodriguez's voice, now broadcasting on all Council frequencies. This is the UES Phantom's Edge to any Council vessels monitoring this engagement. The Devourer fleet has been neutralized. Repeat, threat eliminated. The system is secure. Across the galaxy, in the emergency bunkers where Council leaders had taken shelter, beings who had ruled space for millennia stared at their screens in absolute shock. The primitives had just saved civilization, but the biggest surprise was yet to come. 1 month after the Battle of Kepler 442, the Galactic Council chambers felt different. The same crystal walls reached toward the same artificial suns, but the beings who gathered here were changed. The easy confidence that had ruled this place for millennia was gone, replaced by something humans would recognize as humility. Captain Sarah Chun stood once again at the center platform, but this time no one was laughing. The same representatives who had mocked humanity's primitive technology now watched her with expressions ranging from amazement to fear. Honored Council members, Captain Chun began. I returned to provide the after-action report you requested. Chancellor Morden's crystalline form seemed dimmer than before. Captain Chun, I believe I speak for the entire Council when I say we owe humanity an enormous debt. Your fleet saved our civilization. Our fleet? Captain Chun allowed herself a small smile. Chancellor, the vessels that engage the Devourers represent less than 2% of Earth's defensive capabilities. Shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. Admiral Zorth's 4 hands gripped his chair so tightly the metal creaked. 2%? Dr. Silaris' mechanical voice carried disbelief. You destroyed the most powerful invasion force in galactic history with 2% of your military? The ships at Kepler 442 were our newest experimental vessels, Captain Chun explained. We wanted to test their combat effectiveness against an unknown enemy before committing our main defensive fleets. Ambassador Vexthara stood up slowly. Captain, our analysis of your combat performance showed weapons technology centuries ahead of anything in our databases. How is this possible? Your civilian ships still use fusion drives and kinetic weapons. Captain Chun gestured to the woman beside her. I'll let Dr. Elena Vasquez, our chief physicist, explain our technological development. Dr. Vasquez was a small woman in her 60s, with gray hair and bright eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 30 years developing the weapons that saved galactic civilization. And she looked completely comfortable, addressing beings who had mastered science before humans discovered fire. Members of the Council, she began. Your analysis of human technology was correct, but incomplete. Yes, our civilian vessels use fusion drives. Yes, our public military uses kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. These are the technologies we allow others to observe. You deliberately showed us primitive technology? Chancellor Morden asked. For the same reason a poker player doesn't show their cards, Dr. Vasquez replied. Humanity learned early that in a dangerous universe, survival often depends on being underestimated. She activated a holographic display showing the development tree of human science. While your civilizations pursued traditional paths of technological advancement, bigger weapons, stronger shields, faster engines, humanity took a different route. We focused on understanding the fundamental forces that govern reality itself. The display showed human research into quantum mechanics, dimensional engineering, and temporal manipulation. Technologies that most council species considered theoretical curiosities, humans had turned into practical weapons. Your quantum torpedoes manipulate matter, Dr. Vasquez continued. Our entropy cannons manipulate time. Your energy shields deflect attacks. Our probability fields make attacks never happen in the first place. Your ships exist in normal space. Our vessels exist in quantum superposition until we choose to make them real. Admiral Zorath found his voice. But why? Why develop such advanced technology while pretending to be primitive? Captain Chun answered. Because humanity has always been the small fish in a big pond, Admiral. We spent millions of years as prey animals, hiding from predators stronger than ourselves. We learned that sometimes the best defense is making sure no one realizes you're dangerous until it's too late. Your culture influenced your science, Dr. Solara observed. Exactly. While other species developed technology for conquest or expansion, humans developed it for survival. We became very good at making threats disappear without revealing our true capabilities. Dr. Vasquez brought up another display showing human defensive installations throughout their space. What you observed as primitive colonies are actually sensor networks and weapons platforms. What you cataloged as basic industrial facilities are shipyards producing vessels that exist partially outside normal reality. We've been preparing for threats like the Devourers for over a century. How many ships do you actually have? Admiral Zorath asked quietly. Captain Chun and Dr. Vasquez exchanged glances. Admiral, our defensive doctrine is based on making that question irrelevant. If you can't detect our ships, you can't count them. If you can't predict our capabilities, you can't plan against them. Chancellor Morden raised his crystalline staff. Captain Chun, the Council wishes to formally apologize for our earlier dismissive attitude. We clearly misjudged humanity's capabilities and ignored a warning that could have saved many lives. Apology accepted, Chancellor. But more importantly, we hope this experience teaches all of us not to judge species by appearances. Indeed, the Chancellor continued. The Council unanimously votes to offer humanity full membership and requests a formal alliance against future threats. Captain Chun was quiet for a long moment, considering her response. The government of Earth appreciates this generous offer. However, we've decided to decline Council membership at this time. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Dr. Solara spoke over the noise. Decline? But why? You've proven yourselves the most capable military force in the galaxy. For exactly that reason, Doctor. Humanity has learned that great power comes with great responsibility. We're not ready for that responsibility yet. We need more time to understand galactic politics before we start influencing them. Ambassador Vexthara leaned forward. Then what do you propose? Earth offers a mutual defense pact, Captain Chun replied. If any civilization in this galaxy faces an extinction-level threat, humanity will help defend them. In return, we ask only that other species respect our borders and our choice to remain independent. And if we face internal conflicts, wars between council members, we stay neutral. Humanity will not take sides in political disputes, but we will act against genocidal aggressors or extinction threats, regardless of their origin. The council members discussed this proposal in hushed tones for several minutes. Finally, Chancellor Mordoon announced their decision. The Council accepts humanity's proposal. We establish a mutual defense treaty with Earth, respecting your independence while ensuring cooperation against galactic threats. As the formal negotiations began, Admiral Zorath approached Captain Chun during a break. His massive frame towered over the human, but his voice was respectful. Captain, may I ask you something off the record? Of course, Admiral. How many stealth ships does humanity really have? Captain Chun looked up at him with an expression that was friendly, but revealed nothing. Admiral, if I told you that, they wouldn't be stealth ships anymore, would they? As she walked away to rejoin the negotiations, Admiral Zorath found himself scanning the empty space visible through the chamber's crystal walls. Somewhere out there, human vessels were probably watching, protecting, waiting. Ships that could rewrite reality itself, crewed by descendants of prey animals who had learned to hunt. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, Admiral Zorath found it oddly comforting. In a galaxy full of unknown threats, it was good to know that someone was watching who truly understood the value of being. Prepared. Captain Chun completed her diplomatic mission and prepared to return to Earth. As her shuttle departed the orbital station, long-range sensors detected what might have been escort vessels forming up around the human craft. Or it might have been sensor ghosts. Or spatial anomalies. The Council would never know for certain. And somehow that seemed exactly how humanity preferred it. The species that everyone had laughed at had become the galaxy's hidden guardians, protecting civilization from shadows while letting others take the spotlight. It was perfectly human, effective, humble, and mysterious. In the end, the greatest trick humanity had played wasn't their advanced technology or their stealth capabilities. It was convincing an entire galaxy that they were exactly what they appeared to be, right up until the moment they needed to be something else entirely. The laughter had stopped. The real work of keeping peace could now begin, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, human ships continued